Welcome back, everyone, to the Sport of CrossFit podcast. I'm your host today, Chase Ingraham, and I have two very special guests. Number one is Niki Brazier. You know and love her from the CrossFit Games media side as far as sidelines and lifestyle reporting. Niki, thank you for joining for us. And then Mr. Adrian Conway, the only man and his team to beat CrossFit Mayhem in live CrossFit Games competition, seminar staff extraordinaire, and a brand new 26.2 sticker on the back of your car, marathon, and a happy belated birthday. Just look at it. It's just a lot of things going for everybody. Hey, guys.
Hi.
What is up, guys? I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, Adrian, I didn't know you would run a marathon recently.
I did. It was 2 weekends ago.
Ooh, how's your body?
Have you recovered yet?
You know, I have, man. I got back in the gym on Monday. Now, I didn't do anything for my legs. I stayed away from the legs for a minute. But yeah, the marathon was amazing. It was a great experience. Awesome challenge.
Oh.
What was the best part that came out of that for you?
I think exposure to an energy system that I hadn't touched. Okay. You know, to be honest with you, right? Like I've done CrossFit for a little over a decade competitively at a pretty high level, right? But I hadn't touched 3 hours plus, let alone close to the 4 hour time domain. So I learned a lot in fueling, recovery, and pacing. So it was a lot of lessons.
And then what was the worst spot of chafing?
Oh,
so that was definitely in training. I learned many lessons through my long runs, and I did not make that same mistake again on the day of competition. So I was well oiled up, we'll say.
There's not enough body glide in the world.
Not enough. Man. Not enough. I went through a complete stick in training for sure. Had an extra one for the run itself, but you got to get between the legs.
Dude,
gentlemen and ladies that've been doing CrossFit,
Dude. Yes, the ABC area is what I call it, and I'm not going to give the words to those acronyms, but they all have a meaning. And my first marathon, I did not learn from my previous training because I was like, hey, I'll wear some brand new running tights that were way too tight up in the undercarriage region. Ain't enough body glide in the world to take care of that problem. That was
y'all
bad
just be
news.
lucky you don't have to run in a sports bra, because the underarm, like where your arm rubs against the side of that is I learned that in training for my first and only marathon ever. Thank you very much. Check right off the list right there.
Check the box. So long marathon for Adrian and new baby for Niki. For those of you guys that don't know,
yes, congratulations.
How old now?
Thank you. He'll be 12 weeks at the end of this week.
You are in the trenches taking grenades. I tell you what. 3 months in.
You edit the bags out from under my eyes on this, please?
She's got some of those like strips right here, just like game day strips.
Yep.
Put they take care of the glare and hide the bags under your eyes. Well, thank you guys for joining the show. What this is going to be, we are going to preview the third annual Rogue Invitational, year number 1. It was in Columbus, Ohio, at the brand new Rogue Fitness facility. Year number 2, Rogue pioneered a new way to broadcast live competition in different parts of the world, doing the very first completely broadcasted online simulcast, which was the Rogue Invitational in 2020. And now we are back in person, but we are in Austin, Texas, my home state, the great state of Texas. And when you spell it with all caps. Those are the rules. And it will be outside in a new baseball stadium just outside Austin, Texas. And it looks like it's going to be quite a big show for the day. And what we're going to do is we're going to preview what is coming up. And for those of you guys that haven't followed it, what I think has been really cool about what Rogue is doing is every year they seem to be doing something never really done before. And in year 1, it was they built a stadium for the competition. They had the outdoor stadium, and then they repurposed some of their indoor facility. We just talked about year 2, which was an online format of everyone viewing a live stream where they collected everyone's videos and then simultaneously started them at the same time in conjunction with the broadcast. And we've seen a lot of different entities take that and use that going forward. And then in year 3, I think the biggest thing here was, it is an invite only competition this year as opposed to previous years, but what they did with their prize purse, specifically with adding Bitcoin to the prize purse and then tying in ticket sales revenue to a percentage of the prize purse in total. And, I'd love to get both of yours kind of feedback on this. Is the Bitcoin thing is something I would have never thought about. And those guys I don't know too much about cryptocurrency, but I know that it is steadily increasing. And what they did is when they bought it, if it's gained interest since the time of their purchase, that percentage goes up with the price. It's like you don't just get this amount, like you get whatever it's worth today. And tying in ticket sales is the more people come, the more percentage revenues they get of the ticket sales. And this to me is really when people are like, all right, when are you going to professionalize? Like, to me, this is the first step to really getting some good off-season opportunities for athletes and another step forward to really professionalizing the sport itself. Adrian, how do you feel about the new prize purse so far?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. I think when you think about Rogue, you think about doing everything big. You think about innovation, and they're knocking it out of the park with this. I don't also know a ton about cryptocurrency, but I will say that I know that it is growing in popularity and the demand is growing. And we know that it's a finite thing. So, of course, it's going to go up in value. It was a genius way to, I think, create this intrigue from within the community. It made me want to go learn more about it myself, first of all. And then secondly, I think it ties into the primary age demographic of a lot of these young competitors that are going to be probably in the sport for the years to come. Like, they're looking at this type of currency specifically, and they have a tremendous interest. Either they're investing themselves or they're curious enough about it for that to excite them. But it gained value. So I think that's amazing, as well as the ticket sales.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, okay, give the people what they want, right? That accompanied with the roster that they've put together, like, it gives you an opportunity as being one of the athletes to be like, okay, hey, if my likeness is worthy, people are going to come see me. They're going to be excited about this, and the pot's going to grow because of that. So if the athletes do their job, show up and put on a show, it's going to continue to get bigger and it will reward them in the future. So I hope this is just the beginning of these types of activations or payouts for athletes.
Niki, you've been in this sport covering it for a very long time now, and you've seen it grow in its infancy to where, I mean, shoot, when CrossFit Games in 2010, it was like, here's your cutoff sleeve Under Armour shirt and a pair of Innovates. And now we're tying in Bitcoin and $1.25 million starting purse to an off-season competition and incorporating ticket sales. What is that like for you, seeing the evolution from your side of the sport?
It feels so much like the rising tide here. And it feels like it's involving absolutely everyone from, the people who are behind the scenes putting this thing together, to the people who are on the floor competing, to, the media team who are working, and us even talking about it. It just feels so very much like the entire community is now being brought in that super wonderful kind of like warm, fuzzy family CrossFit scenario that we know and love. And that's why we do this sport. I will also say that going even a little bit deeper into where that money is going, doing little things like paying out down the line, doing a travel stipend for the athletes. I mean,
that was huge.
Those are dollars that we're not even necessarily counting when we look at just like, a giant prize purse. And these are dollars that make it so that these athletes can do this for a living. We forget because we watch them and we love them, and they're spectacle to us. And Adrian, you are not human in my mind. And Chase too, because I know you can.
No, it's okay. Adrian's way better than I am.
But we forget people need to put food on their tables in order to keep performing for us to watch them. So giving them the opportunity with little increments like that, I think, is just a way to get some longevity in here. Make it so that I can keep watching my favorites for years to come.
I like that you brought up the travel stipend, because that's been a point of contention, I would say, the last couple of years, specifically with the CrossFit Games, because of international travel. And it was even more apparent this year during the pandemic. And a lot of athletes from Australia, you're hearing numbers of like tens of thousands of dollars because of travel restrictions. Now, it always won't be like that, right? This is an extreme example, but this is part of the first step, I believe, in getting more professionalized across the board, whether it's the CrossFit Games, CrossFit Season, Rogue Invitational, right? You got Dubai, Waterpalooza as your really big 3 off-season competitions. And Niki said it beautifully, is like, it is a rising tide lifting all ships opportunity, because the more everything grows, the better everything gets. And the better everything gets, the more everything grows. And little things like this is like, Rogue does things that are like, I didn't even think about that, right? And that was last year. I think a prime example was the video live stream thing that they built last year. And then I think Loud and Live took it to a different level, or just in a different way for their Masters online competition. I can't even remember exactly what it was. And then we saw the same thing happen on the virtual semifinals and some of the live open competitions for the CrossFit Games, whether it was stage 1 or those virtual. So this is one of those things that, hey, it's okay to say, listen, we didn't think about that. That's a great freaking idea. Let's use that to make everything better. And I think the travel stipend is definitely, I would say, hopefully a building block to that. Now, I will say it's a bit easier to do with only 40 athletes that are coming in, right? Not
totally
1,000, but it is, I think, a good first step. Well, Adrian, as an athlete, right, you've competed individually at the CrossFit Games, you competed team, you just competed recently as a master, first degree white belt baby master.
That's right.
Welcome to the club. See, as you're coming in, I can't wait to get out. I've got one more year in your pool, and I'm stepping my toe out into the 40-year-old division in 2023. But what's it like for you seeing something like that come up for the athletes?
It's transforming. It's because people, overlook this aspect of it constantly. They see the hours that you spend in the gym. They see the time that you train. They see your wonderful scores. They see your performance on the field. But what they don't see and understand is that a lot of these athletes have to have teams of support so they can keep doing what they do, whether it's through sponsorship, whether it's through, a side hustle or side job that not a lot of people might know about. But the travel is a really big obstacle for a lot of these people, specifically those coming out of the country. And for years, and it's of course another obstacle for teams, but for years, that's like, you've got to do some fundraising. You've got to do some type of, even if it's like a GoFundMe to get me to the CrossFit Games. And it sounds completely absurd when we're having this sport that has millions of spectators across, when you look at the online platforms that people are able to view it as, such a spectator friendly event and everything. And we've got these athletes that are like asking peers and friends for support so that they can even go compete and showcase their talent. So I think what Rogue's doing here, again, is really leading from the front. And I hope that any other competition that has the means and has the ability to piece together this type of organization or support for the athletes is going to take as many notes as they can and double down for them, because truly we'll see athletes come out of the woodworks to try to claw and scratch their way to a top of a leaderboard to qualify to get an opportunity or to perform better all year round. And it's going to alleviate them of external stress so they can focus on what they're really trying to be professionals at, which is throw down on the competition floor.
I love it. So let's look at the roster. We said we have 20 and 20. It is an invite only event. We're still in the middle of what, I don't know where we are as far as the timeline of this pandemic, but things are still happening around the world, which makes it even harder for others. But listen to this list that we have. We'll do the women first. Caroline Prevost, Jacqueline Dahlstrom, Emma Carey, Carrie Pierce, Sam Briggs, Emily Rolfe, Ariel Lowen, Turi Helgadottir, Emma Quaid, Danielle Brandon, Katrin Davis-daughter, Amanda Barnhart, Christy Ermo, Mal O'Brien, Gabri Magala, Haley Adams, Kristen Holte, Annie Thorisdottir, Laura Horvath, Tia Toomey. That's your women's division.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely staggering, the quality and the caliber of athletes that they have coming in. On the men's side, Jason Smith. Does this guy age? Seriously.
Seriously.
No. Like this guy takes away all my, I know my excuses are BS to begin with. We're like, oh, I'm 38. I'm about to be 39. I got 2 kids. And it's like, bro, and I'm like, yeah, and you're you're better than I am. You're just different. But Jason Smith, I love that we have Sam Quant coming in, Ben Smith, Uldis Upenix, Alexander Caron, Chandler Smith, Will Morad, Jason Hopper, Hendrik Hapalainen, Andre Houdet, Cole Sager, Jeff Adler, Travis Mayer, Lazar Jukic, Alex Vigneault, Guy Malheros. Man, that's a topic to talk about. Saxon Panchek, BKG, Pat Vellner, Justin Medeiros. We have 5 of the 6 podium athletes from the CrossFit Games competing in here, and 80-90% of the top 20 all in one spot in just 20 and 20. This is going to be one of the most jam-packed elite fields we have ever seen in competition outside of the CrossFit Games. Or at the CrossFit Games, depending on when you got cut. Like, who knows, right?
Seriously.
But I mean, this is like listen, I couldn't make it to Madison this year. Well, then you better go to Austin, Texas, because if you wanted to watch the best athletes in the world compete, they're competing in Austin in 2 days.
It's going to be an amazing lineup.
Niki, for you, you've seen a lot of off-season competitions, and even the first year at the Rogue Invitational.
Yeah.
This is like rattling the names off. I knew who was there, but when you say it out loud, I'm like, oh. Like
I know. You know what's funny to me is I look at a men's field like this and I get excited because I'm like, dang, it's really anyone's game. Like, people are gonna claw tooth and nail. They're gonna fight for those podium spots, and that as a spectator is my favorite thing to watch. Truly, is like the leaderboard bounces around, and after every single event, something different is out there in terms of the point spread, and like that's fun competition to me. And then I look at the female field and I'm like, dang, it's really anyone's place for second.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So it's crazy to me, and this is just such a testament to the dominance and unreal status of Tia Claire Toomey, that after so many years of competition, you can stack a female field like this, and I'm still like, okay, cool. So Tia, and then the competition really kicks in. So that it's still insane and incredible to watch, and every time we see her run away with a victory, it is history in the making. So in its own way is very special to watch too.
I just love the shift. I mean, we say that about the men's competition for 9 years, other than the Ben Smith in 2015, and we said that about Rich Froning, and we're like, will there ever be another one? And then we had a Matt Fraser, and then we're like, okay, who's next? And then Tia Claire comes in the middle of that, and you're like, is she like the best ever? Like, not just the best female, like the best ever? And so now these questions, and Tia's going to run it back one more year, she said, and I hope that she does. I mean, nobody wants to tie at the top of it. This isn't soccer, right? We're not here to make ties. We're here to make records and make history and take the title. So I love that Tia said she was coming back to the CrossFit Games. Niki, I know you asked the question, and that wasn't the easiest question. I think we had a long discussion of whether or not you should ask that question, but you did, to your credit.
I did, and I'm so glad that she was just like, hey, yeah, I'm coming back. I was like, oh, thank God.
Run it back. I'm like,
go for it, girl. I'm here for it. But no, that was a moment where my palms were sweaty.
And so that's the individual side. Let's talk, there's also 2 other elements to this competition this weekend. One is the strongman element. And this is new to the Rogue Invitational, because previous years, year 1, it was individuals and teams. Adrian, did you compete there?
No.
Year 1?
Oh, no, I didn't.
You're probably recovering from the year prior.
Exactly. Yeah. That year it was I was still focused on growing business, man. This was my first year back in competition, in fact, since 2017. So
has it been that long?
It has. It has.
Dang. Well, hopefully, my 2 years that I'm taking off, I can do what you did in some form or fashion when I try to come back in a year. But we do have a strongman competition. Now, typically when you talk about Rogue Fitness and strongman, you think of the Arnold. This year, this competition is the Rogue Invitational strongman competition, and they have some of the top athletes in the history of the sport, right? You got Brian Shaw is going to be there, Martin Litzis, half the names I can't even pronounce, Jeremy Pritchett, Mikhail Shakovalov or Shakovalov, the guy that just deadlifted a brick house and then blood started coming out of his nose. You remember that video?
Yes.
Back a few years ago. These guys are just bat-ass crazy. I can't wait to see these humans in person. Because you see what they do on camera, you're like, that looks really hard. It's almost like watching CrossFit as an amateur. You're like, oh yeah, that looks tough. You're like, you have no idea how tough it is. And I can't just wait to watch somebody just like go out there and pick up a house and just see the size of these individuals. Yep. But the big one I want to talk about is the legend side. And what I love about the legend side is that it really, Rogue itself is doing a very good job of tipping a cap and recognizing those who had a massive impact on the community and the growth of the sport as far as CrossFit and the CrossFit Games. And on the male side, you got, I honestly don't know which one I'm more excited to watch. Chris Spieler, Dan Bailey, Jason Kalipa, Josh Bridges, Josh Everett, Matt Chan, Miko Salo, Rich Froning, and Tommy Hackenbrook. And on the female side, Annie Sakamoto, Julie Fouché, Kristen Clever, Margot Alvarez, Becca Voigt, Tanya Wagner, and Stacy Tovar. I mean, these are the athletes that really did lay the foundation of the sport that we know and love. I mean, not to get too in the weeds here, but I don't think I'm talking to you people here on this conversation without these athletes and what they did for the sport in their heyday. What's it like to see these names just back out there, just mixing up in front of the crowd again? Adrian, I'll start with you.
I mean, I love it. And I think what you said is 100% correct. Like these are the guys, these are the women that like I looked up to prior to being able to step onto the competition floor at all, right? Like these are the people I was watching on YouTube. These are the people I was like, oh, what's that name? Cool. Let me Google this individual, right? Yeah. They truly laid the foundation. And then, to see them get to come back and be on a floor and showcase not necessarily just their raw capacity, but the role that they've played in the sport is amazing to me, right? Like I think even about a guy like Josh Everett, who is an OG that many people are going to overlook, right? I've had the chance to work seminars with him. He's going to say only what needs to be said when it needs to be said.
Man, a few words.
Who's doing sideline at Rogue? I'm sorry. Good luck.
Yeah.
But he is an assassin on the competition floor, right? Truly. What a remarkable athlete, fantastic coach. And I think about all these guys, not just people like him specifically, but they're at different places in their life. They're at different seasons. Everybody essentially except Rich, right? At least on the male side. Yeah. Dan's still going to be getting his feelers and getting back on the Masters scene, I think, as well. And several of the females are. But it's not their priority anymore. And yet they're humble enough to get out there and be like, hey, I'm going to still go down and try to kick the rest of these guys in the teeth and try to win this event, right? Yeah. Whatever it means. Yeah. And I think that's inspiring, man. It's inspiring to me. It's inspiring to the rest of the community that like, it doesn't matter where you're at. Like, hey, if there's a 3-2-1 go call and someone's sounding the horn and there's barbells and dumbbells and CrossFit involved, let's make it happen. Yeah. And I love that. I love it.
And now, Niki, that from the athletic perspective, we see that a little bit, but as just a fan of the sport prior to you even being a part of media, right? These are the athletes that you maybe fell in. There's almost like a romanticized feeling with what these athletes did on the competition floor, as opposed to just the competition side itself.
Oh, totally. And I think when you look at their accomplishments and their lives, since when we first, like Adrian said, we first Googled them. And by the way, nothing came up because CrossFit was brand new. Yeah. We were the only ones that knew anything about it and about these people. You'd Google Chris Spieler and it was like,
like, how do you spell that?
Google was like, who? Yeah. But when you look at what they did on the competition floor and the span of their lives until now, that's what gets me more excited and more interested in the competition, honestly, because you've got recent competitors like Rich, even like Annie, who's recently been competing in the Masters division. Right. And then you've got people you haven't really seen or heard from in a while. When's the last time that Tanya competed or Stacy Tovar competed? And then you look at, those women have kids. And as a recent mom, I'm like, oh, damn. Like, you went back to the gym ever?
Yeah.
you know, and everything in between. And it's really, you know, you've got Matt Chan, who was on the Titan Gate. Like they've done so many different things, and their lives have bounced up and down in so many different ways that, to me, that's the coolest part of watching the Legends competition now. It's like, man, these people have lived, and they're still out here performing in whatever way, shape, or form they can. That's cool.
I think you guys both made great points, and they centered around the same thing. Was sometimes we'll look at the Legends like, oh, look at what they did. How inspiring, or we applaud you for the groundwork that you laid for us. But really, look at what they're still doing. Look at what they've done for their career. And now they have life happen to them, which a lot of us are all in the middle of that, right? Kids and work and, you know, the grind that is just like entrepreneurship that we're all playing with now. And now we can look at them as inspiring in almost a different way, right? The longevity of the sport lasts well beyond the competition floor. And I think that's the really cool thing to see about the Legends. And you look at these athletes like, yeah, okay, it's not just it, but what I want to move to next is I feel like we have 3 now new tiers of athlete generations. And a lot of this Legend group, I would say they're the foundation, right? The founders of the sport. And then you have this middle tier that, you know, Rich is the crossover between Dan Bailey, I think, and Josh Bridges, is that middle popular class or generation that came in. And we're starting to see some of that second class trickle out. Carrie Pierce just said she's going to retire. Kristen Holta retired at the game. Scott Panja, like, you know, your second, I would say, wave of popular athletes. And then you still have Annie Thorsauter, who competed in the 2009 CrossFit Games, and over a span of 12 years, had a kid, came back and podiumed. But I feel like we're starting to see the beginning, and you guys let me know how you see this, of that second wave generation starting to bow out. And then we're like, okay, who's next? It's like in the NFL, you see like your top quarter is like, okay, it was Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. And it's like, who's going to be the next generation? And then just like, boom, within a year, there's like 12 new quarterbacks that are just blowing the doors off everything. You know, the Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. You have all these young generations. And now I feel like we see that coming up with the Mal O'Briens, Emma Careys, Haley Adams. On the men's side, Justin Medeiros is 22.
Yeah.
22. Guy Malheiros might be the most exciting athlete in CrossFit right now, just because I don't know anything about this guy. Other than he's a complete wild card, and he's probably exactly what you want to see from a young generation. Nick, I'll start with you. What is it like to see this maybe changing of the guard, so to speak, for the generation of athletes that we predominantly know and love today, which is that middle tier of athletes, and seeing these young kids come up?
You know, I think we forget that, like, that middle generation that you're calling it, and even some of the Legends, like, these are just guys and gals that got real good at working out in their garages.
Yeah.
Like, we forget that's how CrossFit started. Ben Smith had that fridge in his garage that he wrote all of his workouts and times on. And then when CrossFit introduced the teenage division at the games, they started this sort of revolution of younger kids who had kind of been like working out with their parents in the box, whatever, it's fun. Mom lifts, I want to watch her lift, I want to try, to like, no, I'm going to be the next one going at 15 years old, at 16 years old. And I think what we're going to find is, like, we thought Rich was good. We thought that was good. Okay. These kids have been training for this since they were 8, 9, 10 years old. And it's going to make a new generation of Terminators. Like, I already don't think Adrian is human. Look at the next wave of kids. And I personally had the opportunity to work for several years sideline at the games in the age group divisions. So I got a chance.
You've seen them grow up in the sport.
I have known Guy for years, since his insane snatch, like just under 300 pounds when he was like 17 years old. And he told me he accidentally loaded the wrong weight onto the bar because he didn't know how to lift in pounds. He only knew how to lift in kilos. So since they were children, I have been chatting with these people and kind of like following their rise Haley Adams is one of those. I worked with her for years in the teenage division before anyone knew who she was. And I just think these people are going to be unstoppable, and we are going to second guess what we thought talented at CrossFit meant when we see them.
Adrian, when you see this young generation of athletes coming up, knowing how you started, and like myself, as we all started where it was just like the coaching was just pick it up, bro. Right? Like just go faster. Like those are the type of cues and coaching that we got. But now there's so much education in every facet of fitness: aerobic, weightlifting, nutrition, mindset, sleep. And knowing how you got to where you got, seeing these younger kids come up, what type of advice would you say these younger athletes, or what would you give to them as they're getting into the very first stages of their CrossFit career?
You know, what's ironic as you asked that question, Chase, about advice, is that I think a lot of this younger generation needs less advice about the sport in itself and how to carry themselves around the sport in itself than I ever did. And I say that because, you know, my background was a football player, you know, and so I needed to learn several things. I needed to learn how to carry that skill set or that capacity over into CrossFit and how it was going to help me. You know, you might have come from being in the pool. You might have come from the tennis court or the soccer field. Like a lot of those, again, that second generation of CrossFitters, we had athletic backgrounds that were pretty vast or very detailed either way compared to the sport of fitness. And now you ask one of these youngsters, like, what's your athletic background? They're like, yeah, it's CrossFit, man.
Yeah.
Like my athletic background is CrossFit. And they've been molded and kind of shaped in this atmosphere where it was like, yeah, I know I should sleep 10 hours a night. Yeah, I know I should track my macros so that I'm getting enough fuel. No, I know that I should eat enough carbs. And I'm just like, well, can you teach me?
Yeah.
You know, like I've been here and I've been present and I've studied exercise science and exercise physiology and I've coached for many years. And I see, man, these young humans are being like genetically engineered in this really this like perfect environment for themselves and for the sport. So I think what we're seeing now as we talk about this younger generation is truly a pro at the sport of fitness. And now we're at the tip of the iceberg with what we're going to see. You know, we talk about these greats, Matt and Rich and Tia, and we think about like the numbers, right? Like their dominance. But when we look at their numbers alone, like let's think about what they clean and jerk and what they snatch and what their 1 mile time trials are and what their 5K is. And now we start to line up the Emma Careys and the Guillermo Harris and the Dallin Peppers and like the Justin Medeiros. And then like, let's check some of their numbers alongside these guys at their peak. And like, how close are they? And you're like, wait a second. This sport is completely transforming, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's an amazing thing, man. We're at a really cool spot right now with where things are going.
That's a very good point. I honestly, the way I asked the question is like, oh, well, we've been in it. So we're a little older, wiser. We'd think a lot of it for me is as a coach, I'm like, listen, I did this all the wrong way. Let me help you do it the right way. But you're right. Because we sat there and being basically just converts to the sport of CrossFit. You coming to the football field, me, the pool, and everyone that had this athletic background and didn't want to give up on just being athletic. So we found CrossFit. You're like, okay, what are all the deficiencies I need to improve on that I ingrained in my body for 10 to 15 years of playing a specific sport? And so I felt like a lot of our training was just like getting rid of bad things or bad habits or training things we've never done before in 15 years. And you're right with these younger kids. And I've said this on a show before, but the sport of CrossFit really parallels the sport of MMA. When MMA was first created, every athlete was a convert of either boxing, karate, or wrestling. And so you had a certain skill set. So really it was two things. You were either a striker, a kind of a counter athlete like jiu-jitsu, or a grappler that you would find in wrestling. And they were very, very specific skill sets: punching, kicking, grappling, or reversing like jiu-jitsu is. And then after about 15 years, you started getting athletes that have spent a decade since they were 10 doing only MMA. I'm not a converted wrestler, and I had to learn how to throw punches like, one athlete. Like for Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a striker. He's not a grappler, right? And now you have these athletes that have been doing both. And I feel like there's a very similar parallel in CrossFit like we have with old athletic athletes now versus the younger crowd that's coming up. That's a good point.
I will say that I do still find a huge foundation in the successful CrossFitters, even the younger ones, in gymnastics. Like, yes, they've been CrossFitting since they were 10 or 8 or whatever, but like their parents enrolled them in gymnastics. And I will, mark my words, enroll my son in gymnastics the moment he can start walking, because that seems to be the foundation. I even see it in the gym. I have been coaching now for 10 years because I'm old.
Hey,
and I see
congratulations. Decade.
I see it in the gym of everyday CrossFitters, quote unquote, where the kids or the people that as kids started out with this foundation of understanding their body in space and building their musculature properly and whatever, that always seems to translate to just better all around CrossFitters. And I think we see that even in some of the younger athletes as they're coming up. So that foundation, bottom of the pyramid, I think.
Yep. Absolutely.
Adrian, I'll let your level one, your level one spider sense is probably tingling with what Niki's bringing in. And I think specifically to the sport of CrossFit, that gymnastics base level of training is almost a cheat code for really the foundation of CrossFit and all of its movements, right? And when you talk about the sport is just the sport, but like just CrossFit in general, having that kinesthetic awareness of body to brain to weights is a massive, massive advantage when you think about the baseline foundation of functional movements. And so, yeah, 100%. It's no surprise to see that.
No, not at all. I think she's hitting the nail on the head. And even to dive in more specifically, it's like on the female side, even more so, right? Because we just know it takes more contractions, more time under tension to develop that upper body strength in pulling in and pressing, especially when we think about being inverted as well. And it's like some of these young men, you can get away with a little less than optimal technique or a little less exposure and still be competitive. And on the female side, you just watch these gymnasts run away and pull away from the rest of the field if that is their background. And you're just like, wow, there's some unique things there. And we've been painting that picture pretty clearly, I believe, at level ones for quite a while. And the foundation of practice is there, but people want to overlook the importance of the development of body weight awareness in gymnastics in general, but can't overlook it.
No. And let's talk about the athletes we have coming in and start thinking about who we think is going to do well or not. But before we do that, I just want to tail off what you just said there, Adrian, is like, yes, the younger male athletes can get away with more because they just have that natural ability for, strength and power. Whereas the female gymnasts have an advantage because they train that where most other athletes specifically females don't, right?
Correct.
But on the CrossFit Games side, we have more teenage or under 20 female athletes moving up from the team division into the individual division than we do the men. And I find that's a weird little parallel because Justin Medeiros actually started as a CrossFit teen. Now, he never made the games yet. He had done some like Wodapalooza and stuff. But Guy Majeros is one of the only men to ever make it from individual teen to individual at the CrossFit Games. But on the women's side, Haley Adams, Gabrielle Magala, Emma Carey, Mal O'Brien, you have these athletes that are now coming up from the teenage division and not just like qualifying for the CrossFit Games, but being a name and a force at the CrossFit Games. I find it like a weird little parallel. It's like, yeah, you have this early development of the male athletes, but they can't crack the individual side where the female athletes are.
Haley did it at the same time.
Right.
Remember? Yeah. Haley's last year as a teenage competitor, she went to regionals as an individual. Didn't qualify, but still, girl, come on. Seriously.
What is Emma Carey's what? She was 16 when the Open started last year.
Right.
Mal O'Brien was 17. They were both 17 at the CrossFit Games. They forewent the teen division. One of the, I think was it Mal? Mal was so baller. She's like, I'm not even doing the age group online qualifier.
Right.
But that's how badass these athletes are. So it's really neat to see the youth of the sport starting to take shape on both the men and the women's side. And so when we look at your top 20 athletes, the events just got released yesterday, which look amazing. And if you guys go to Instagram and look at Katie Henniger, Bill Henniger, Rogue Fitness, and Rogue Invitational, and they're posting stories of the setup. The Zeus rig is out there in the middle of a baseball field. They built a hill. Let's just talk about that for 1 second. Rogue built a hill for their events, which I can't wait to see what that setup is. But as we look forward to the weekend of competition, we'll start with the men. Adrian, I'll go you first, Niki second. Okay. Looking at this field, Pat Vellner is your returning champ from the online one. There is no Matt Fraser. Your returning CrossFit Games champ is Justin Medeiros. As you look at this field, I would say who do you looking at that'll be in the top 5, and then maybe one athlete that people aren't really talking about for the men?
So who I like in my top 5 is what you're asking me?
Let's say podium. Let's go 1, 2, 3 and a dark horse.
Okay, 1, 2, 3 and a dark horse. Well, I mean, I would be remiss to not bring up the fact that, like, I feel like there are a lot of hungry men in this field. And I mean that specifically whether they did not qualify for the CrossFit Games or that they showed up to the CrossFit Games, had a little bit of hype around them, and then might have come up a little bit short. So I think that this is going to be a very chippy field. I think that the lead will be exchanged in hands many times, even though right now we've only seen 6 official event releases, and we know the 7th is still up for grabs. Like, we don't know what that's going to be. But I would have to throw my top 5 out, and potentially not in this order, as Pat Vellner, Justin Medeiros, Saxon Panchik.
Okay.
Travis Mayer.
Okay.
Cole Sager.
Ooh.
Really?
All right.
Okay.
All right. Now throw a wild card out there.
Yeah, dark horse. Lazar Dukic.
Yeah, Jukic.
Yes.
And I say that specifically because of the way this programming looks.
Right.
It's. I think this is a great combination of things. I mean, the test looks absolutely amazing, like so much fun, to be honest.
It does.
And I believe it was Rich and Chris, right? Rich Froning and Chris Spieler that had their hand in kind of creating this masterpiece that we're seeing here. But do we want to talk about programming? Can I throw that out there right now?
Yeah,
or do you want to
throw it out there? Well, yeah.
So just taking a look at these events, something from my history of being involved in the sport and breaking down like where I think maybe things could shift and or change based on either body types or whatever it might be, energy systems. This looks like an amazing combination of things almost in each event that don't allow like your particular size and or limb length to be a huge limitation. And I say that because if we're playing CrossFit in a box, like in the open, sometimes that shorter, more stout individual has a huge advantage when it comes to making a large load travel a long distance quickly because they don't have to make it travel as far.
Yeah.
And in this situation, I mean, we've got several transitions here. The max lift is a clean and a shoulder to overhead complex.
Yep.
In event 3, we've got thrusters. We've got an echo bike and we've got more thrusters. So even though it's just a barbell there, at least we've got, this erg where your body weight and your height are both leverage and advantages to kind of equal out the event. Event 4 has another erg with calories for the ski. We've got weighted GHD sit-ups, but then that hill's gonna appear and be an obstacle, I think, for a lot of particular individuals. Deadlift burpee pull-up, I think it's maybe Colin Chandler Smith's name. He might be pretty good at that.
I think he's the reigning defending winner of that particular event. That was one of the first events in the first year at the Rogue Invitational.
So if I could pick an event to go participate in myself, it'd be that one, right? and it's because I got long arms, right? And so I look at him and I'm like, long arms, relatively short torso, big deadlift. So his distance that he has to travel for those burpee pull-ups are lesser than most of the guys. So I look at that, and then I think, of course, this long chipper to finish. And again, it's a beautiful story that I think we'll learn about their fitness throughout the weekend. But I think it's very well balanced, both with loading and time domains and distance traveled for the athletes. And I like Lazar due to his general work capacity. The events that he simply did very well at the CrossFit Games this year, where I was kind of like jaw dropped. I was just watching this guy move, and I was like, hey, you got an engine, buddy. You got a serious engine, and I think it will get an opportunity to show at the Rogue Invitational.
All right, I like that. Niki, let's look at the women's side.
Okay.
Without picking Tia.
Okay. There.
I mean, unless she's not in your top 3, but
Well, I'm a bitten woman, so
yeah. So you look at the events that we've had so far, and as Adrian said, is that there really isn't a body type or a specific skill set you can say this person will do well. Right. And when you see that, it tends to be like, okay, well, where are my really balanced, good workhorse athletes? So as you comb through the programming and you see the female lineup that we have, good luck, by the way, picking out of these,
Seriously.
because we're going to hold you to this, obviously. But who are your top 5, and then a wild card on the women's side?
Well, I think let's just put Tia out there in that first place spot.
The wild card, right? That's the
right. I wonder how she's going to do. No, let's put her out there in that first place spot. And I would also bet that her dominance reigns. Yeah. As everyone still gets good, I would put my money on she's still ahead of the pack by hundreds of points, and we can't figure that out.
It's one of those $200 bets to win $1 kind of a thing.
Kind of, yeah. I actually would put Haley Adams in that second place spot.
Oh, okay.
Because to me, she's so much of an up-and-comer, and she continues to prove herself over and over that unless I looked at the programming and thought this programming is only for the strongest women we've ever seen, because I think Haley mitigates well in heavy competition. And she knows that she's not the heaviest lifter out there, but she mitigates incredibly well. So I'm going to put her in that second place spot. I'm going to put Annie in the third place spot.
Okay.
Because I think that she's got some legacy to hold since her podium at games. And I think that she's proven to herself that she can. And keeping that confidence up will keep her up there. And then I have Danielle Brandon in the fourth place spot, who she has just felt like she came out of the woodwork 2 seasons ago, and she has never left. She faced incredible adversity at the CrossFit Games and still did very well. And I think she's hungry to prove herself because she didn't necessarily have the easiest platform to do that at games. So now she's out there. Hopefully everyone stays healthy and nothing, happens like that again. And now she has a real opportunity to be like, no, watch me go. I can. That was 4, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then in the 5th place spot, oh God, this is so hard. You know what? I put Cristiamo O'Connell.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason that I have her up there is because of how well she fought back in the Last Chance qualifier last season. I think she can do anything. I think she can come into a deficit and do anything. So that would be cool. And then my wild card for up there, oh crud, though. I forgot that Carrie was going to be there. See, this is why this is so hard. It's top 6. My wild card anyway is Sam Briggs.
Okay.
Because I have watched that woman win competitions that I never thought she would, they would be super. Like Dubai is a great example. Dubai is kind of known for being a heavier skewed competition.
Yes.
And we watched her win that well into her master's years.
Quite voluminous programming.
Right. And she won. I mean, I remember interviewing her. This was 3 years ago now. The first year of sanctionals where she won. And I was like, well, you're going to games. And she was like, yeah, I just thought I would come here and try to win some money so I could fund my trips to other sanctionals where I could actually win. And she, was not even expecting that. So I think that she's just capable of anything. Put her in the podium for sure.
I like it. I'll give 2 wild cards. I won't go through both. Adrian, did you put Guima Harros in your top 5? Okay.
I did
Guima Harros is going to be my wild card for a top 5. I don't think he'll podium.
I like it.
I think he'll be top 5. And I'm going to call podium for Laura Horvath. I'm going to throw that out there on the women's side. I've been watching her training, and she's up at Krypton. I feel like she's been there for weeks now, and I feel like under Ben Smith, she has really turned her career around. She was a huge splash in 2018. had 2 really rough down years, whether it was, lack of training, injury, stress, emotion, just from a lot of the things that sort of derail her in live competition. And I know there's strict handstand push-ups in here, 60 of them, so that's not nothing. But I love the way she competed last year. Look, she got second at the games last year.
I know.
Right?
And I would forever be so upset that we did not have time on the broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm saying this out loud. There was no time on the stream to do another interview. And I will forever be like, God, I wanted to give her a moment in the sun, but we just, and then it was over. And I was like, no, can we do an interview?
Yeah.
Time,
and not against Niki. This obviously was not her fault. Timeline is the timeline, but I feel like she has yet to get her due of getting second at the games with statistically the greatest point per place finish in the history of the games for a second place finisher.
No kidding.
Like her finishing places, if there wasn't a Tiatumi, would have been the best performance at the games ever in live competition, other than say 2020, which those numbers are skewed. What Laura Horvath did at the games, no one has done that didn't win the games. Now there weren't any handstand push-ups at the games this year,
right? Well, there's that. There's that.
There is that.
Though. Question.
Yes.
With her coach competing on the men's side, with her coach not being there to devote all of the, mental and emotional sort of like leaning on that you need from a coach in that scenario.
Right.
Does that change things?
That is a great question. I'm not sure how much game day stuff Ben does for Laura, because I don't even know if Ben was at the games this year.
He was. I interviewed him.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did do an interview. That was during the run.
And he said that. He said, it's good. She's great in a mental space. She's in a much better spot, and I'm here for her.
Yeah. I think. Well, that's a great question, because is he going to do it? Is maybe Adam Klink going to be a part of that? I'm not sure. Adrian, you've been an individual competitor.
Yep.
How does that affect you on game day, whether your coach is there or maybe not 100% there with you?
This is going to truly depend on the individual. I rarely competed with a coach in the back with me. Rarely. And even when I was, on a team, it was just us back there, and we were kind of coaching ourselves, of course. And then we had some assistance and support, but I think it really depends on how she feels as an individual. Now, who's to say that in 2018 she was back there alone and doing her thing? Maybe that was a cool, calm, complacent way for her to execute. But I think for a lot of athletes, it can break them, and for a lot of athletes, it's kind of sixes, right? I do think, to her advantage, even if this is a big point of emphasis for her, that she needs that support, is it's the Rogue Invitational, not the CrossFit Games. So there will probably be some time for them to decompress and socialize together in the back, instead of it being like 100 miles a minute like this year's CrossFit Games, where no one saw athletes all day. That was just crazy, right?
Right.
So I think that hopefully those opportunities will present themselves. It's if it's important to her, but I'd assume her and Ben spend so much time when they're training together that they've probably experienced this in their day-to-day quite a bit, where he's doing his thing, but she's also doing her thing. And then they get to come together and chat about it, once things are done, and iron things out and correct things moving forward if things need to be changed.
I love it. All right. Before we sign off and just see what the weekend's going to unfold, we have a podcast announcement. Is during the weekend, both Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after competition, Adrian and Niki will be hopping on about 45 minutes to an hour after end of competition on YouTube Live, and you guys will be able to get a full day's recap from Niki and Adrian. And at the end of each show, for about 10 to 15 minutes, field some questions from you guys, talk about some topics that we didn't talk about, bring your questions and attention and energy to the podcast, which will be going on live Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which I'm super pumped to. Unfortunately, I get to be there. I'm super excited about that. So I'm very fortunate there. But I'm going to be able to watch live competition, and then I'm going to kick back and be able to watch a live podcast when it's all over. Maybe I'll even throw in a question here or there. Maybe try to derail the show while you guys are in there. But I'm super pumped about that. I'm very thankful you guys are going to be a part of that. You guys, again, y'all have busy lives, and I'm really excited to see those recaps after each day of the show. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So make sure you guys tune in. We'll post that on Instagram. We'll post it on YouTube. Go to the CrossFit Games YouTube page. That's where it will be live. And we'll even send these out afterwards, both video and audio. But before we sign off, as always, with new programming and a new competition, looking forward to the weekend. Now, you can take this question wherever you want to, but we'll look at the programming specifically. What event, and Niki, we'll start with you, are you most excited to watch? It doesn't have, it can be your favorite. It can be something personal to you. It couldn't even be like the best one out there. But what is the one you're looking forward to seeing these athletes take on the most?
I think for me, it's going to be the Echo Burner.
Oh, you're so mean.
I know.
You're so mean. Yeah, you're sick.
It's wrong. It's 20 thrusters and then 40 or 32 calories on the Echo bike and then 20 more thrusters. And for me, when I was reading through all the programming, that's the one that made me go like, oh God, like worse than the chipper, worse than the hill run, worse than just that's a pain cave type of an event. And I think that's where you see sometimes the greatest separation of the athletes is who can go there, who can hurt, and who can sustain that for, that's not a short workout, even if you're a powerful athlete. So it's event 3 on Saturday, and that's the one I'm most excited to watch.
I like that. Yeah. Oh man, that one definitely screamed off the paper when I saw that one, but I also screamed audibly when I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness, that's just rude. That's rude programming. It's good programming. But it's rude programming. Simple. Adrian, what about you? What are you most looking forward to see event wise?
Oh my, weekend? I mean, it's hard to pick. Niki, you're again, that's just so rude of you. But hey, listen, I'll even share with you guys from an athlete perspective, even looking at event 1 and event 2, which are important because they're on day 1, right? Like you're nervous, you're anxious. Event 3 is the workout everybody's thinking about, right? Like that's the one when it's over. In the back, the athletes are going to be like having a great time the rest of the weekend. But until that workout is done, they're going to be thinking about that workout. So I love that you picked that one, Niki. And I'm going to go all the way to Sunday, right? It's going to be Halloween. We're going to have an idea of where the leaderboard is sitting. There's going to be a lot of points left on the table with 2 events remaining. But I got to go to the event 6 chipper, and I really love a good chipper because even in my experience as a competitor, I love being able to start with the field and watch some people start much too fast, right? Than they should. They've overestimated their ability and they're leading the charge. And then you kind of let them rip it. And then by movement 3 or movement 4, somewhere in the middle around those that first jerry can carry, which I can't wait to see what that is, first of all. But they have a jerry can carry there. And at that point, that midpoint in the workout, that's when I really want to see like who's starting to push for the lead and who's taking the chance on the back half of the workout, somewhere in those 15 ring muscle ups and 30 strict handstand push-ups, like who paced it just right. And I love watching that unfold as it happens. A little bit of a slower workout, not as exciting as yours, Niki, but just different. And these were always my favorite. And then who's going to sell out on that last row, right? Like that's a scary part. That's a scary way to end the workout.
That's a different kind of mean. Y'all said I was sick, but guys, Adrian's a different kind of mean where he's like, I want to watch you go out hard and then burn. Like, come on.
I like watching people get just picked off, right? Like they start, their heart's happy, they're smiling, they're like, oh, I'm killing everybody. And then that person, that stoic person in the back, you're like, oh, where did this person come from?
I love that. Yeah. 2 different sides of the spectrum, both awesomely awful. The one I'm actually looking forward to is event 1. I want to see the over under the log. I just saw that get posted on Rogue Invitational's Instagram page. I want to see this hill. I'm always a big fan of just like new objects, and Rogue at the games has a tradition of building things we've never seen before. So we have the Zeus rig with these log attached about 3 feet off the ground. We have a Rogue made hill in the middle of a baseball stadium. And obviously rope climbs are a nice, big, sexy movement, and seeing the Zeus rig out there for everybody. I mean, it's such a Rogue event.
Yeah,
if I could put it any better. It's such a great way to start the weekend. Everything's fresh, up and over the logs. Rope climbs will look amazing on the rig, the hill, and then we have these wheelbarrow pull and pushes, which who knows what that's really going to look like. So I think for just the mystique and the awe that is the Rogue Invitational and Rogue Fitness itself, I'm really looking forward to the first event of the weekend. Obviously, everything across the board with individuals, legends, and the strongman competition. I think it's going to be a jam-packed weekend. I can't wait to see it in person. I can't wait to see the recaps you guys will have at the end of every day. So make sure you guys tune in. It'll be streamed live on Rogue Fitness's website as well as YouTube on there. So there will be a live broadcast all day long for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for all the individuals, legends, and the strongman. So you're going to see everything there really is when it comes to the sports that Rogue Fitness supplies and supports. I think it's going to be super great. Adrian, Niki, thank you for taking the time. Good luck this week, and I can't wait to watch the show, and I will see you guys this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.